Welcome to the Answers for Elders radio show. Meet the trusted experts who will give you straight answers and will help guide you on the path of later life care. Now, here's your host, founder, caregiver, and CEO, Suzanne Newman.
And welcome everyone to Answers for Elders Radio Network, heard across the USA. And it's the month of November, and we are celebrating on our show all this month, Family Caregiver Month. And what does that mean? If you know someone out there that is caring for a loved one, whether it's a senior loved one, maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's someone, a child, anything like that, the statistics on caregivers are amazing. And current studies says there's approximately 70 million unpaid family caregivers across the USA. They're caring for all kinds of individuals, all types of situations, and we celebrate them. And we hope as you're listening to this program, and it's the time of giving thanks coming up this Thursday, think about that individual, and even if it's a phone call to say thank you for what you do. I know, me having been a caregiver before in my past, certainly it means a lot when somebody recognizes the work I do. And for those of you that are listening today, we have an amazing treat because we had talked last week about how to be your best advocate, how to support your loved one as you're caregiving. And I think a lot of times as a caregiver, I know for me, I lost my balance of my life. I ended up trying to get everything right and everything perfect. Well, it's an imperfect world, folks. And as a result, I really wanted to talk about this topic because if you know somebody that is looking at, how to balance my life, how to give do the best job possible caregiving. And I knew right away the person to reach out to, and I am so honored to introduce to you an amazing senior care provider, leader, someone that has been in the industry for many, many years and now heads up Fedelta Home Care, who works with family caregivers each and every day. Flanna Perkins, welcome to Answers for Elders Radio.
Yeah, thanks, Suzanne. Thanks for having me.
I am so interested in this topic because when I was a caregiver, just a little bit my story, my world, I always say I fell down the rabbit hole. I didn't have the knowledge nor the awareness of what was going on with me. And everything in my life fell away. I was isolated from my friends. I was taking care of a loved one. And then what was happening is my mom, she was resentful for a lot of things that I was like overstepping my bounds because it was her life, right? And yet there's so many times it's such a difficult juggling act. So Flanna, could you kind of give me an idea of what goes on with caregivers when they are in that role?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I would like to just talk about, there's kind of two types of caregivers. There's what we would call the informal caregiver. And it sounds like, Suzanne, you were the informal caregiver for your mother. You were providing care for her. It was unpaid. You were doing it because she was your mom and the kindness of your heart and all of those things.
Right.
And there's another type of caregiver. And these are the caregivers that our company hires. And we have paid caregivers, or what we call formal caregivers.
Right.
These are the paid people that come in and provide paid support for folks. But I really feel like most of our conversation is really going to be around that informal caregiver, the caregiver caring for their loved one. And one thing that we see so often that happens when people finally make it to us is a lot of times that informal caregiver is really burnt out, frustrated.
I was.
Yeah, they're not daughter, they're not son any longer, they're not loved one. They're now they're a caregiver. They're providing lots of care. They're exhausted. A lot of times we see even spouses as the informal caregiver for their husband or wife or their partner. And sometimes those people pass away before the care receiver, the person receiving the care, does, because of just exhaustion, burnout. Maybe they start to get other diseases and things like that. So they have poor self-care. They're not taking care of their own. So those are things that we see. And when we see those, at least for us and my profession, we want to help and find a way to provide a safety net and provide a way so the unpaid family caregiver can have a break and have respite. And we spend a lot of time educating people about what respite care is, why it's so powerful. And really, if you see just nationally throughout the country, there's a movement for respite care, even within,
very much so,
even outside of the kind of the state funded programs, because I think we're seeing that if we can provide a little bit of relief and care for the unpaid family caregiver, that person is now able to provide even more care to their loved one.
Right. Yeah. And you know what you're saying is so valid and important, because I think a lot of times a family caregiver, like informal caregiver, we'll call them, they feel a sense of profound duty. There is this feeling of, I have to hold it together. I have to do this all on my own. Because my mom or dad don't, quote unquote, don't want outside help. They let their life go sideways. And yet it's interesting because it's all the way you look at it. It's like saying, well, I have a toothache, but I don't like to go to the dentist, and I'm not going to the dentist. So in the meantime, this festers and festers to the point. And that's the same principle. It's like, you know, I think about so many times of the circle that I had as a family caregiver. Those were the professionals like you guys that I could talk to, that I could get insight on how to do things, how to communicate with my mother that had dementia, that I didn't even really understand. And I would get combative with her, which is the last thing you want to do with a parent that has dementia, because they're back living, 20 years ago, right? And you're trying to deal with that loved one, that mom or that dad that is still the parent. They may know that you're still the daughter or the son. And so those are the dynamics. A family dynamic is so, such a big part of this, Flanna. And I'm sure you see that quite a bit, where there's this need to hold it all on their shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the reoccurring theme that we see from most families, and a lot of families feel guilt. They feel like they should be doing more for their loved one. They also feel like they shouldn't be asking for outside help at times.
Right.
They should do it on their own. And really, when we come in, we're saying, hey, where are the pain points for you? What are the places that are creating extra stress? And we find those areas and say, what if we just take these things off of your plate? We can continue to do. We don't want to take everything away. That's not the goal for any professional that comes in and provides care or help or additional assistance. But it's pretty powerful when you get a full care team together to provide care, kind of almost under that kind of, it takes a village concept. Because it really does when you're providing care for a loved one. And a lot of times we don't really plan or understand what our end of life will look like, or the end of life for our parents will look like. And it's really traumatizing. It's very hard. It's difficult. It's emotional. I mean, even though I've worked in this field for pretty much my entire adult life, we're all also experiencing it ourselves with our loved ones as well.
Yeah. And I think too, there's this hesitancy to, am I interfering? Or should I, I feel like I'm betraying my loved one because I reach out to someone that takes care. But I will tell all of our listeners today that you'll be quite surprised. You can now step into being the son or the daughter or the wife or the husband. And you don't have to have these difficult scenarios where you are faced with, upsetting the dynamic of the relationship. And I think that's something that, I talk a lot to families about how those things evolve. What happens when, I hear things like, well, it's, the tables are turned, or parenting your parent. And that is absolutely the wrong approach to take. And I know, Flanna, you agree with me on that one, 500%. It's important that all of our family members stay connected as in the role that they're in. And so, Flanna, you are going to be with us the rest of this hour. In the meantime, you are the CEO of Fedelta Home Care, and that's in Puget Sound. What locations are you and how do people reach you?
Yeah, so I will tell you a little bit about Fedelta Home Care. So Fedelta Home Care is based in our main office is in Seattle, Washington, and we serve really the Puget Sound area. And we also have an office in Portland, Oregon. And I think the best way to reach us, honestly, the easiest way is through our website, which is easier than a phone number. And so our website is fedeltahomecare.com, and I'll spell it for everyone because it's kind of an odd name. It's Fedelta Home Care, HOMECARE.com. And if anyone is really looking for home care services, that they have questions, we have like this really amazing person who we have live answer on her phone. So she answers all of our calls, and she's someone that can just answer your questions. Our home care supervisors are happy to come out, and we do phone screenings over the phone and phone assessments for our clients. We can go to the home and provide a home visit, but most of the work we do, honestly, is in the space when we have an informal caregiver, and it's usually a son or a daughter, loved one, who is reaching a point in delivering care to their loved one that they just can't manage it independently any longer, and we come in.
And Flanna and everyone will be right back right after this. We at Answers for Elders thank you for listening. Did you know that you can discover hundreds of podcasts in our library on senior care? So visit our website and discover our decision guides that will help you also navigate decision making. Find us at answersforelders.com.